It started for me as a young teen. I was growing up in the city of Philadelphia in a row house, but I was always drawn to the outdoors, to wild places. So I found my way into the extensive city park system. In one of those visits, I was walking through the woods and looked up on a branch, and I saw a bird perched high. It was blue-gray and rusty brown, sleekly built, and it was holding a robin in its talons. I was hooked. A diversity of birds is around us all the time, flying over our homes, outside our windows, and growing in an appreciation for the bird world around us can give us new connections to the natural world. And as we seek to understand and learn about birds, those connections reach out to a community of like-minded people. And ultimately, we reflect on the grandeur and beauty of this creation. We're in awe of the creator and the very author of this wild world. So birds provide a natural connection to the natural world. And why? Because they're beautiful. Birds are found in the colors of the rainbow. Sometimes they're gaudy and sometimes it's subtle, but the colors that birds use to attract each other, define themselves, appeal to our eyes. Because we're wired for aesthetics. We love beauty, not for some survival value, but for pure joy. So maybe it's a cardinal, a brilliantly red bird, aptly named, that's sitting in a small tree or shrub outside your house. Or it's a goldfinch, the yellow and black striking plumage that comes up to a feeder right outside your window. These beauties attract our attention and are worthy of our attention because they gain value to us and we appreciate the natural world more. But the beauty of birds is more than visual. Birds sing. The melodies and sometimes even harmonies that comes out of birds' mouths add to the beauty and create a mystique of birds. We know of the Song of the Nightingale. It's legendary. And locally, the song of a hermit thrush is melodic, and it's common in the woodlands around us. A friend of mine referred to the hermit thrush as the Mozart of the bird world, and it's a common denizen in the hills nearby. That beauty appeals to our senses and draws us into a greater appreciation of nature. When we think about the feather creates those colors and at the same time enables birds to fly. We're fascinated by flight. And the engineering of birds is a marvel to us. Now, the expression of sight and sound across the bird world is astounding. There are over 10,000 species of birds on the planet, and they come in many shapes and habit, and using all the habitats of the planet, with the exception of the interior of Antarctica. Think of the largest bird, the ostrich, found in Africa. It's strong enough to kill you with a kick. And at the same time, birds appear in a myriad of forms in hummingbirds in tropical forests. They live on the nectar of flowers, and the design and complexity of their colors, sometimes metallic, and the long feather plumes are astonishing to our minds. In fact, that diversity of birds is almost beyond our comprehension, and it's a struggle to grasp and understand the full range of birds that are there. It's a challenge. It humbles us to approach the world of birds. As we think about the way birds interact with their environment, it also expands our appreciation. The ability to fly has made birds be able to move through the seasons and in response to resources that they find. The migration of birds is astonishing as they move from one place to another place to exploit the resources at that time and place. Imagine an insect-eating bird as fall approaches. Frost happens, food's not available. That bird can pick up and fly to a place far away that provides the resources it needs to survive our winters. The movement of birds is astonishing. It happens in numbers that we could hardly imagine. And we relate and connect to those movements through the annual cycle of life. How many of you look forward in anticipation to the first robin of spring? There might be snow on the ground, and yet a robin appears, giving that hope and promise that spring is coming. Or maybe you are thrilled by the sound of a flock of geese as it goes across the night sky, It happened to me in Philadelphia as a kid, and I thought, there's a bigger world out there. Those geese are connecting places that I'll never see. So birds are adapted and exploit the resources throughout the annual cycle of life, and we relate and are tied into that. You know, oftentimes an appreciation for birds is a very private, personal matter. Yes, I know there are festivals for birds. Swallows are anticipated in Capistrano, and there's even a festival for vultures in Georgia. But oftentimes we begin and approach that bird world privately as we think about what our own experience as a young teen. You know, I didn't go to the locker room in high school and share with the guys the birds I saw over the weekend. That wasn't going to gain me any points. And yet at the same time, I was drawn to learn and know more. I didn't know anyone else with this interest, and yet I wanted to learn. And as I did, I began to realize there was a community of people with a similar interest. Yeah, it was a bird club, and actually it was a bunch of crusty old gentlemen. It wasn't ladies in tennis shoes, but those people had a great knowledge and appreciation, and I could learn from them. A college professor opened the door for me to resources that were available, a vast literature that helped me learn the identifications and the natural history of the bird world. So I grew and learned more. I would have been limited if I kept it to myself, but growing and making connections to others provided that ability to expand what I could have learned on my own. That community is large. As surveys have been conducted, we realize that about a quarter of U.S. households will put some money and time into wild birds. You ask, how do they do that? Well, they do it by feeding birds. Feeding birds is a $2 billion a year industry. People put their money where their heart is, and they love the connection that bird feeding provides. Birds can be hard to see, but as birds come into a feeder closer to our homes, we get to have those close encounters, and we appreciate and share in that joy. So bird feeding is big business, and a broad network of community of people across the planet enjoy and appreciate birds. Well, that appreciation has only grown in the last 2 years of the pandemic. Yeah, the mandated social isolation pushed people to find new outlets. We went outdoors as a safe and healthy environment. And as we did that, people became curious about birds. They were just learning, but they went outside and they began to reach out. And as we do naturally, they reached out to a community to help them learn. Initially, that was virtual. Facebook pages and chat groups expanded. They exploded during the pandemic year. The public parks were overrun with visitors. And as they grew in their knowledge and appreciation, they made connections. And those connections have helped them grow and learn and appreciate the wild birds around them. Those connections can be more than just your neighborhood. If you think about bird movement and flight, as we've said, birds connect different worlds. We may not spend the time and money to go there, but as we grow in appreciation for birds, we begin to value places that are far from us. I think of a bright Baltimore oriole. It's a beautiful bird with a bubbly song. As I appreciate the bird that's nesting down the lane by my house, I begin to feel like that's my bird. I care about that. But then in the fall, it has to move and it moves south to a coffee plantation in Latin America. And as it moves, someone in Latin America identifies and recognizes that bird as their bird. So we have this shared common value. And as we do that, we begin to care about places far from ourselves just through birds. So birds can be an ambassador in this increasingly polarized society. Birds link us around the globe. Well, ultimately, birds we grow in appreciation and we're awed by the beauty and diversity of bird life. That can point us ultimately to the author of the very creation who made, and not only made the beauty of birds, but enabled us to be connected to those, not for a survival value, but we grow in appreciation and can be pointed to something so much bigger than ourselves. Birds are worthy of our attention, and that all starts with the first robin of spring or a goldfinch at your feeder. The birds are out there. Go pursue them.